Welcome to KBR Knowledge Hub. This is Babu Rao Kunchala. Now I would like to discuss one of the current issue. But anyway, this is a familiar one. So recently, carbon offsets in news. And what are the problems with the carbon offsets? Before going to discuss about the problems, first of all, what is carbon offsets and what are the carbon sinks? We will discuss. So first one here, why in news? Carbon offsets. So the carbon offsets, first one. Second, we will discuss why in news. And third one, what is carbon offsets? And next one here, Kyoto Protocol. And what are the problems with the carbon offsets? What is greenwashing? Right? And finally here, what is the way forward? What is the conclusion? This is what we are going to discuss in this video. So first one here, why in news? Carbon offset in news recently. The offsets have come under fire as a way for companies to compensate for carbon emissions through eco projects elsewhere. Offsets have come under fire as a way for companies to compensate for carbon emissions through eco projects elsewhere. Through eco projects, right? They have to compensate. That's why in news. So now here, what is carbon offsets? Right? We should know that. Carbon offset is the meaning here. This is a way to compensate for environmental damage. Let us take simple example here. If the companies which is emitting the carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide to the atmosphere, which is actually damage to the environment, right? That industries should compensate for the damage, right? That is called carbon offset. Compensate for environmental damage, carbon offset. That companies make a financial contribution to projects that reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and in exchange, it can pollute the environment at least, right? This is the carbon offset. So now industry is damaging the environment. At the same time here, they must contribute to clean the or to compensate for environmental damage. Right. So then there are some examples of projects include planting trees. They must do that work, and revetting peatlands. Then again here, which store huge amounts of carbon in the soil. Right. These are the carbon sinks actually. Plants, ocean, soil, and all this one. They have to actually encourage and they have to compensate that. Okay. Right? So now here in these greenhouse gas emissions and environmental pollution, in history, if you observe here, there is one protocol that is called Kyoto Protocol. It has allowed, according to protocol, the industrialized countries to use carbon credits, each of which is worth 1 ton of carbon, to keep within emissions limits. It mentioned the limits. Kyoto Protocol. Very, very important protocol. So, right. So, then experts have warned that the most of the credits on the voluntary carbon market aren't effective. The experts have also warned that most of the credits of the voluntary carbon markets are not effective. Right? If you want to know about the more Kyoto Protocol, we will discuss in other video. So now here, how to offset carbon emissions? First one here, step 1, measure the emissions. Measure the emission. Second one here, reduce the emissions. Third one, offset the rest. And fourth one here, receive a credit. This is the procedure for here. 4 things you need to answer. Step 1, step 2, step 3. In step 1 here, measure emissions. In step 2 here, reduce emissions. Step 3 here, then offset the rest. And step 4, receive a credit. These are the 4 things here. So in step 1, if you observe here, learn how much greenhouse gases emissions your organized product produces. And step 2 here, change to more sustainable business practice to reduce emissions. And step 3 here, the fund emissions reduction projects elsewhere through the purchase of credits to offset the emissions you can't reduce yourself. These are the 4 steps you need to understand. The final step here, the credit shows that your business has offset its carbon emissions. This is the 4 steps every company should follow that. Right? And the first one here, they maybe release the pollution, carbon monoxide and anyway greenhouse gases into the environment, which is actually pollute the environment. The next one here, that should be actually observed, reduce the emission through by using the different alternatives. Right? This is the carbon offset emissions. So next one here, what are the problems with the carbon offsets? Is there any problem? The first one here, genuineness. Most of the world carbon offset certifier do not represent genuine in carbon reduction. This is why everything is false. Most of the world's carbon offsets certifier do not represent genuines in carbon reduction. Right? And lack of alternatives. That is one more problem of the carbon offset. Mostly planting trees are considered to reduce emissions, but there are only few alternatives to reduce emissions. Right? Lack of alternatives here. And same mechanism, right? For all companies, planting trees or other alternatives cannot reduce emissions for all companies, right? Are you getting my point here? Same mechanism applying by the all companies, it may not reduce the carbon emissions. They're releasing more emissions to the environment, but they're not genuine, right? And there is no alternative for that also. These are the most major problems of the carbon offsets. Next, one more problem. A cheaper carbon credit, right? The expense of carbon credit are cheaper than reducing carbon emissions. So companies mostly prefer carbon credits. The expense of carbon credit are cheaper than reducing carbon emissions. So companies mostly prefer carbon credits, right? Right, it is very difficult to stop the emissions into the environment, but it is easy to plant the plants, right? It is the plant carbon credits. That is the one thing here. Next one here, regulation, lack of regulation, right? That is also here carbon offsets industry. There is no regulation, clear regulations. Then lack of technology. In carbon technology, to capture carbon directly to offset carbon, there is no that much of lack of technology, also another problem. So greenwashing. Most of the companies adhere to the greenwashing via avoidance of offset projects. Greenwashing. Right, most of the companies doing this one. So now here, what is greenwashing? Greenwashing is when an organization spends more time and money on marketing itself as an environmentally friendly, as an actually minimizing its environmental impact. Are you getting my point? Greenwashing is when an organization spends more time and money on marketing itself as environmental friendly, as an actually minimizing its environmental impact. That is what we call greenwashing. So what is the way forward? What we can do? The overestimation of the carbon reduction via avoidance offsets needs to be addressed. First one. Second one, and tighter scrutiny of offsetting clients to regulate carbon credit markets. The scrutiny offsetting should be tight. And third one here, defining standards to carbon credits so that purchasers could use to sort the good from the bad and filter out low quality carbon credits. This is also one thing here, right? And next one here, nature-based solutions that must be adopted to offset carbon. Is it clear? These are the major problems and these are the solutions also. I hope now you are able to understand what is carbon offsetting.